Hello dear viewers and welcome back to another episode of For Sense. My name is Amilcar and I am a sci-fi and dark fantasy author. I had been thinking about making a video about how important it is to respect fans by keeping the original canon intact and not modifying or adapting it, as people call it nowadays, for the so-called modern audience. But a few days ago, a controversy came up that I just couldn't ignore. Actually, it was like 2 or 3 days ago. The author of Gachiakuta, a really popular manga with an anime adaptation last season, Kei Urana, made some statements against a portion of the fan base that started bombarding her with questions about the sexual identity of certain characters as well as romantic relationships between them. In general, I always said, and I still stand by this position, we authors don't owe our readers everything, but without them, we wouldn't be authors. Now, what does that statement means to me? It doesn't mean creating, or in my case writing, based on every single idea that fans included in the work. What I mean is that if they are dissatisfied with something, we should listen to them and take their comments into consideration, both the positive and negative ones. This always in relation to the plot and the story. It also means maintaining certain minimum standards of creativity, like explaining what happened and why, without resorting to made-up solutions or plot adjustments just to protect a character. To me, that kind of thing insults the reader's intelligence. That said, what's happening here is completely different from what I believe, because these people aren't actually fans of Kei Urana's work. They are mentally ill individuals who should be institutionalized in a psychiatric ward. They are people without their own identity who have adopted an ideology as their entire personality. On top of that, they try to impose it on others through pressure. For example, I've been following Gachiakuta since before the first anime episode aired, and I can say I am up to date with the manga's plot. This is thanks to a friend who's a graphic designer and recommended it to me, which is why I understand a bit about this. Her art style has been present in the industry for some time now, a focus on modern shonen art that's very dynamic and energetic, with emphasis on intense pose and exaggerated facial expressions. Some examples of this could be Soul Eater, Enen no Shoboutai, or Blue Lock. In the case of Gachiakuta, the art has a grungy, rebellious and punk touch fused with elements of street art graffiti that give it that raw and chaotic vibe perfect for its world of trash and outcast. Now, why do I mention the art style? Because some fans base their assumption about a character's sexuality or lack thereof on a poor understanding of this style. They create fanfics and then try to pressure the author into turning those fanfics into canon. This isn't just disturbing, stupid and irrational, it's dangerous. Why? Because of pressure from a noisy minority, the author could lose interest in the work and leave it unfinished. And there are certainly many of us who are tired of seeing so many unfinished series or unfinished works. One of the fanfic theories they are trying to push is that one of the characters, specifically Tamsi, is transgender. And as I say, they come with this idea based solely on the art style, which makes absolutely no sense, especially since the author has already came out and debunked that fan theory, clearly stating that the character is male. Another problem I see with all of this is that the work isn't being discussed massively because of some minor plot twists, but because of the character's sexuality, or in this case, the lack of it. If I'm being honest, this character is an excellent antagonist, and the reasons that drive and motivate him should be the real topic of discussions. Why he does what he does, and why he's so interested in the main character, Rudo Surebrek. As an author myself, I do include elements of sexuality for some of my characters, but only when it serves the plot or functions as one more element tied to the character motivations or a consequence of them. For example, in one of my works, there is a character who became a lesbian out of hatred for her father and the patriarchal system. And by patriarchal system, I mean genuinely patriarchal, not what some people call today patriarchal, which is actually just a democracy. Anyway, because of the hatred, she promoted a change from a patriarchal system to a matriarchal one, and she succeeded. That's what I mean when I say a character's sexuality can be part of their background, but it shouldn't be the entire background. Besides all of the above, this isn't the first time this author has had problems. Previously, she also had to debunk rumors about her own identity. They called her non-binary, and she responds sarcastically on Instagram. This showed that these so-called fans don't just attack the character, they even try to rewrite the creator themselves. This happens because this subgroup of fans judge who someone is based purely on appearances, which is ironic since they themselves demand that no one judge them by appearances. In conclusion, not only do they fail to understand Japanese mangaka culture and the culture of authors in that country, but they are also projecting. I'm gonna give some examples. In a 2023 interview translation, she asked to be referred to with neutral pronouns, they them in English, in interviews or translations. She did this to maintain anonymity to avoid revealing her gender so that the focus could remain on the work itself. This is something very common among mangaka at the beginning of their career. In many works, authors prefer to stay anonymous, which is why there are some whose gender is unknown. Now, this is extremely common in Japan among manga artists. If you don't believe me, I'm gonna give some examples of other famous authors whose gender is not publicly known. Number 1. Sugumi Oba, author of Death Note, Bakuman, and Platinum End. One of the most famous for keeping total mystery. No one knows their real gender, age, appearance, or true name. They use a gender-neutral pen name and have never shown their face. Number 2. Koyoharu Gotouge, author of Kimetsu no Yaiba or Demon Slayer. Their identity is completely secret. They prefer neutral pronouns and have expressed discomfort with the specific gender references. They are represented as a crocodile wearing glasses in their official profiles. Number 3. Gachiakuta, author of Jujutsu Kaisen. Uses a gender-neutral pen name and represent themselves as a cat or through avatars. They have avoided revealing their gender, although there are indirect rumors and leaks. Officially, it remains unknown in order not to influence the audience perception of the work. Number 4. 1. Author of One Punch Man and Mob Psycho 100. The original creator of the webcomic that later became a manga. They maintain total anonymity, no photos, no confirmed gender. It is only known that they are male through some indirect comments, but officially their gender remains unknown and they prefer to keep their privacy. In addition to the above, Kei Urana's personal appearance is that of a young woman with a somewhat androgynous tomboy style. Short or tied back hair, comfortable casual clothes, and a not very traditional feminine vibe in the occasional photos or selfies she shares. This combined with the art style in Gachiakuta, where she draw male's character with soft features, prominent eyelashes, long hair, etc., led some fans to assume she must be non-binary or queer, and treated as canon. This shows a clear lack of understanding of Japanese culture. For example, in Japan there are femboys, but they are not necessarily gay. And it is for reasons like this that I believe someone whose identity is defined solely by their sexuality or sexual interest should be in a psychiatric ward, because in my opinion, such a person has serious issues and can only generate major negative disruptions in society instead of contributing to it. If I'm being honest, I would like to say this is an isolated case, but unfortunately, it is not. This is not the first time we've seen this kind of intrusive interference in a work. For example, in One Piece, Eiichiro Oda had to deal with fans and massive backlash because Yamato, Kaido's child, has a very androgynous design. I mean, long hair, delicate features, and muscular yet stylized body, and refers to themselves as Oden's son, using masculine language in Japanese. This led the usual suspects to create a headcanon that Yamato was a trans man or non-binary, which is not the case. Oda has had to clarify multiple times in SBS and Viber cards that Yamato is biologically female, Kaido's daughter, despite identifying as Oden's son out of admiration, which caused massive backlash and obvious excitation for the author. Another example is Satoru Nii and his work Windbreakers. In it, there is a cross-dressing androgynous character named Tsubaki. Cross-dressing is the key element here, yet the pseudo-fans accuse the author of being transphobic for not declaring the character trans. On the contrary, he stated in interviews that the character in question is a man. Just like in the previous case, the author clarified in interviews that Tsubaki is male, not trans, and that this kind of toxic pressure is exhausting. In conclusion, for me, this type of person is not a toxic fan and certainly not a real fan at all. They are pseudo fans because they are not in love with the original work or the author's creation, but with the version they created in their own heads. They want to use the author's fame and the popularity of the work as a vehicle to promote their own ideas, their own agenda. Since they are incapable of creating something of their own, they project their frustration onto others. This directly affects the creation itself because as an author, I can say that when you are exhausted, creativity simply doesn't flow. And that's all for this video. If you like it, please give it a like, share and subscribe so you stay tuned for the next video. If you have any comments or critique, your opinion is important to us, so I'll read you in the comments. See you next time and thanks for your time. Bye bye.